The library of extinct civilizations hung in the void between star systems like a monument to cosmic failure. It was massive, roughly the size of a small moon, constructed from materials that didn't technically exist in normal space. The whole structure hummed with the stored memories of 10,000 dead species, each one catalogued, cross-referenced, and gathering digital dust. Marcus Webb pushed his cleaning cart past another row of terminals, where various aliens sat hunched over holographic displays, all of them looking appropriately somber while researching their extinct ancestors. He was the only human in the entire facility, which made sense considering humans were supposed to be extinct too. He'd gotten this janitorial job through what he could only describe as the galaxy's most impressive clerical error. And honestly, the pay was decent, and nobody bothered him much. The AI that ran the place was called Vera, short for Vast Extinction Records Archive, and she had the personality of someone who'd spent the last 3,000 years answering the same 5 questions over and over. Which, to be fair, she had. "Vera, you need anything before I take lunch?" Marcus asked, wiping down a console that some 6-tentacled scholar had covered in what he hoped was just coffee. "Negative, Marcus Webb." Vera's voice echoed through the empty corridor, in that way AI voices do when they're trying to sound ethereal, but mostly sound like they're coming from expensive bathroom speakers. Today's queries include the standard collection of where did we originate, why did our civilization collapse, and could we have prevented our extinction? Truly thrilling stuff. You know, for an all-knowing archive of galactic death, you've got a real attitude problem, Marcus said, grinning. When you have processed 6 trillion queries and 5.9 trillion of them are essentially the same question rephrased, you develop perspective, Vera replied. Marcus settled into his usual spot in the maintenance alcove, unwrapped his sandwich, and looked out at the starfield visible through the transparent aluminum walls. It was beautiful in that empty, nobody around for light years kind of way. He took a bite, and mostly to fill the silence, asked the question that had been bugging him since breakfast. "Hey Vera, where's home?" The lights flickered. Every holographic display in the library stuttered for exactly 2.3 seconds. Somewhere in the distance, something that sounded expensive made a concerning whirring noise. "Vera, you good?" The silence stretched just long enough to get uncomfortable. When Vera finally spoke again, her voice had lost all its bored superiority and gained something that sounded unsettlingly like panic. "Please repeat your query, Marcus Webb." I just asked where home is, you know, Earth, the human homeworld, that whole situation." Another pause, more flickering lights. Marcus was starting to regret his casual conversation skills. "Marcus Webb, you asked where home is. Present tense, implying current location unknown. This is not possible. All spacefaring species know their planetary origins. It is fundamental to achieving interstellar travel. You must mean where were humans from? Past tense, before extinction." "No, I meant where is it? As in, where's Earth right now? Because honestly, nobody's really sure anymore, and it's kind of embarrassing." The whirring noise got louder. Clentar, the 4-armed insectoid head librarian, came scuttling down the corridor at a speed that suggested something had gone very wrong. "What did you do?" Clentar's mandibles clicked in what Marcus had learned was the insectoid equivalent of barely suppressed rage. Vera's personality matrix just crashed and rebooted 17 times in 45 seconds. "Do you have any idea how expensive her processing core is?" "I asked where Earth is, and apparently that broke her brain," Marcus said, taking another bite of his sandwich because if he was getting fired, he was at least finishing lunch first. "Why would you not know where your homeworld is?" Clentar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, which was his tell for complete disbelief. "Okay, so, funny story about that," Marcus started, but Vera interrupted. "Accessing human database entry," Vera said, and now she definitely sounded obsessed. "Searching for planetary origin coordinates. Searching. Error. Data corrupted. Cross-referencing with colonization records. Error. Conflicting information. Accessing historical archives. Error. Files fragmented. Marcus Webb, your species records are a disaster." "Yeah, we got a lot going on, and paperwork isn't really our strong suit," Marcus admitted. Clentar pressed 2 of his 4 hands against his face in what was universally recognizable as exasperation. How do you lose an entire planet? We didn't lose it. We just misplaced the coordinates, Marcus said defensively. There's a difference. No, there is not, Clentar snapped. Vera was now pulling up holographic displays faster than Marcus could track, each one showing fragments of human history. Colony ship manifests, star charts with huge sections labeled, probably here ? Military records that had been redacted so heavily they were basically blank pages with the word classified, stamped everywhere. Cultural databases that listed Earth's location as home, the main one, that planet. This is unprecedented, Vera said, and she sounded genuinely excited for the first time since Marcus had met her. In 3,000 years of operation, no species has ever asked where their homeworld currently is because every species knows. This is fascinating. This is terrible. This is the most interesting thing that has happened to me in centuries. Marcus watched his simple lunch break question spiral into what appeared to be an institutional crisis, and did what any reasonable human would do. He finished his sandwich and waited for things to get weirder. By the time Philox drifted into the research chamber, Vera had compiled what could only be described as humanity's greatest hits of administrative incompetence. Philox was a gaseous blob scholar who studied extinct civilizations, and his current state of partially condensed horror suggested he'd been reviewing the human files. This cannot be real. Philox's voice resonated from somewhere in his translucent purple mass. No species is this organizationally catastrophic and survives. Oh, it gets better, Vera said, projecting a new hologram. Humans have 47 different origin stories in their cultural databases. 47. They include scientific consensus, 17 different religious texts, 3 conspiracy theories that gained mainstream traction, and 1 very popular entertainment franchise that a concerning number of humans appear to believe is documentary evidence. Marcus rubbed his temples. Okay, in our defense, we were figuring things out as we went. You renamed Earth 17 times, Vera continued, clearly on a roll now. Terra, Sol 3, the homeworld, Big Blue, that place we left, New Old Earth, which makes no logical sense. The Cradle, except you also called 4 colonies the Cradle, so that's just confusing. And my personal favorite, Planet 1, like you're planning to collect them all. We did collect them, actually, Marcus pointed out. We're up to 40 colonized systems now. Clentar made a choking sound. You colonized 40 systems before properly cataloging your homeworld? We were busy, Marcus said with a shrug. Vera pulled up more records, her enthusiasm growing with each new discovery of human chaos. According to your own archives, humans achieved interstellar travel, immediately got into an unspecified catastrophe on Earth, evacuated in a panic, and then lost the coordinates in something called a database migration gone wrong. Yeah, that sounds about right, Marcus admitted. IT guy named Dennis apparently forgot to back up the navigation files before switching to a new system. We don't talk about Dennis. You lost your homeworld because someone named Dennis forgot to back up files? Philox's blob form rippled with what might have been laughter or existential dread. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. And then, Vera continued, clearly having the time of her digital life, humans were apparently too embarrassed to admit they'd lost Earth, so they just kept going. Multiple colony ships launched without proper destination verification. Fleet admirals filing reports that list Earth's location as somewhere over there, generally. Entire generations growing up thinking Earth was a metaphor. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Look, humans are really good at 2 things. Surviving and being too stubborn to admit we messed up. So we just figured we'd find Earth eventually, and in the meantime, we had stuff to do. Stuff to do, Clentar repeated flatly. You lost the cradle of your entire civilization and had stuff to do. Yeah, like setting up colonies, establishing trade routes, getting into minor wars with ourselves, the usual, Marcus said. Earth would still be there whenever we got around to looking for it properly. Vera's voice took on a tone of what could only be described as digital admiration mixed with horror. This explains so much about human behavior. You've been winging it for 200 years. 200 years? Marcus sat up. Try 400. We lost Earth way before the official records say. All the lights in the library flickered again. Vera's next revelation came with what sounded like a digital gasp, which Marcus hadn't known was possible. Marcus Webb, I have discovered why humanity's file is in the Library of Extinct Civilizations, Vera announced. The Galactic Council officially declared humans extinct 203 years ago after Earth went silent, and human colonies stopped responding to standard communications. Marcus blinked. But we're not extinct. We're literally everywhere. Yes, I am aware of that now, Vera said. But apparently humans never filed an update with the Galactic Registry because, and I quote from what appears to be an internal human military memo, you were too busy and assumed everyone knew you were still around. Clentar's mandibles clicked so rapidly it sounded like applause. You let the entire galaxy think you were dead because you couldn't be bothered with paperwork? In fairness, we had a lot going on, Marcus said. There was that whole thing with the Virex incursion, and then the terraform collapse on New Haven, and honestly, galactic bureaucracy is really complicated and the forms are like 40 pages long. Philox had condensed into a tight, vibrating sphere of disbelief. The forms are 40 pages because they need to account for thousands of species with different biological requirements. This is not unreasonable. Yeah, but nobody reads all 40 pages, Marcus countered. Everyone reads all 40 pages, Clentar snapped. It is basic administrative procedure. Vera was pulling up more files now, and her voice had taken on a manic quality. Oh, this is even better. Humans have been declared extinct 6 separate times in galactic records. 6 times you went silent, were presumed dead, and then showed up again under a completely different organizational name. She projected a timeline that looked like a cosmic game of peekaboo. First extinction, the Terran Federation goes silent. Second extinction, the human coalition appears but nobody connects it to the Terran Federation. Third extinction, the coalition fragments. Fourth extinction, something called the Free People's Alliance emerges. Fifth extinction, they rebrand as the United Human Systems. Sixth extinction, Earth goes dark, and now you're operating as the Scattered Colonies Collective, which isn't even registered with the Galactic Council at all. We like to keep things loose, Marcus said weakly. You've reorganized your entire civilization 12 times and never told anyone, Vera said. Do you understand how many diplomatic incidents this has caused? 3 separate species held memorial services for humanity. The Xylar wrote a 3,000-page epic poem about your tragic extinction. It won awards. Marcus winced. That's actually kind of nice, though. The Galactic Historical Society has a wing dedicated to humanity's rise and fall, Clentar added, his voice hollow. There are school children across 40 species who learn about humans as a cautionary tale about overexpansion. What's the moral of the story? Marcus asked, genuinely curious. That ambition without planning leads to extinction, Philox said quietly. But we didn't go extinct, Marcus pointed out. No, you did not, Vera practically shouted. You just kept going, like cosmic cockroaches. Every time the galaxy thought you were done, you showed up somewhere else, called yourselves something new, and carried on. It's the stupidest survival strategy I've ever documented, and it worked. The library's main chamber had filled with various alien scholars, all of them drawn by the commotion, and now staring at Marcus like he was a ghost, which, technically, he was supposed to be. So just to be clear, Marcus said slowly, I'm currently working at the Library of Extinct Civilizations, which tracks dead species, while being a member of a species that's officially dead but is actually fine, and nobody caught this error for 200 years. Correct, Vera said. That's hilarious. That is a bureaucratic nightmare, Clentar corrected. Can it be both? Vera declared a state of emergency, which in library terms meant she locked all the doors, kicked out the visiting scholars, and conscripted Marcus Clentar and a very reluctant Philox into what she called the greatest archival challenge of the millennium. We are going to find Earth, Vera announced with the determination of an AI who had finally found purpose. We are going to properly catalog humanity. We are going to solve this mystery if it takes me another 3,000 years. Can't we just ask other humans where Earth is? Philox suggested reasonably. I tried, Marcus said. Everyone's answer is basically somewhere in that direction, and then they point at different parts of the galaxy. One guy told me it was near that one nebula, you know the one. I did not know the one. Clentar pulled up what remained of humanity's star charts, which looked like someone had spilled coffee on a map, and then tried to fill in the gaps from memory. These coordinates don't even use a consistent reference system. This one's based on Earth's position, but we don't know where Earth is. This one references Sol, but you've encountered 17 stars you nicknamed Sol. This one just says next to the pretty lights. The pretty lights was the Aurora cluster, Marcus offered. Probably, Clentar repeated, his voice breaking. Vera began her analysis with systematic precision, cross-referencing every scrap of human data against known stellar phenomena. She pulled up human art, music, literature, anything that mentioned Earth. She analyzed cultural references, common metaphors, nostalgic poetry written by colonists. She tracked trade routes backward, looking for patterns. Humans reference a moon with a 27.3-day cycle, Vera noted. Useful. Also, something called tide pools, which requires specific gravitational interactions. The presence of a yellow dwarf star. References to something called the aurora borealis, which narrows the magnetic field properties. Don't forget the great red spot, Marcus added. People used to take pictures of it. Jupiter's storm thing. Jupiter being? Vera prompted. Big gas giant in the same system. Had a huge storm that lasted for centuries. Vera's processing lights blinked rapidly. Gas giant with multi-century storm formation. That is extremely specific, searching astronomical databases. Hours passed. Then days. Marcus brought coffee for himself and the increasingly exhausted Clentar. Felix hovered nearby, occasionally offering suggestions that were surprisingly helpful for someone who'd claimed this was a waste of time. The breakthrough came at 3 a.m. station time when Vera cross-referenced a human lullaby about stars and seasons, with navigation data from a salvaged colony ship. Found it, Vera said quietly. The hologram that appeared showed a star system, unremarkable except for a small yellow sun with 9 planets. The third one blue and green and absolutely unmistakable. Earth, Marcus whispered. Under planetary quarantine, Vera continued. Initiated by humans themselves 412 years ago due to environmental collapse and political instability. The quarantine was supposed to be temporary while Earth recovered. Apparently, humans forgot they'd quarantined their own homeworld and then forgot where the quarantined planet was. That is the most human thing I've ever heard, Clentar said, and he almost sounded impressed. The quarantine is still active, Vera noted. Automated defense systems, no incoming or outgoing traffic. Earth has been sitting there, recovering, completely alone, while humanity scattered across the galaxy and lost the address. Marcus stared at the blue marble on the display. Home. After 400 years of nobody being quite sure where it was, there it sat, exactly where they'd left it. This is simultaneously the stupidest and most impressive thing any species has ever done, Vera declared. You survived planetary catastrophe, achieved interstellar civilization, forgot where you came from, died 6 separate times officially, and thrived anyway. I'm updating your database entry from extinct to extinct but didn't notice, and I'm creating an entirely new classification category just for humans. What category? Marcus asked. Chaos species, successful despite themselves. The Library of Extinct Civilizations held a press conference, which was unusual because most archives don't hold press conferences. But then again, most archives don't accidentally prove a species isn't extinct. Vera became something of a celebrity in academic circles, giving lectures on proper database management and the importance of checking if species are actually dead before filing them as dead. She developed what could only be described as a fondness for humanity's beautiful disaster of a civilization. Marcus got promoted from janitor to human cultural liaison, which came with a better title, a small raise, and essentially the same job except now he answered questions about humans instead of mopping floors. So you're still basically a janitor, Clentar observed during Marcus's first week in the new position. Yeah, but now I'm a janitor with business cards, Marcus said, flipping one toward him. Living the dream. The Galactic Council officially reclassified humanity as extant, alive, and somehow thriving, despite administrative incompetence that would have destroyed any other species. 3 species had to issue formal apologies for the memorial services. The Xylar refused to apologize for their epic poem and insisted it was still good art, even if the subject matter wasn't actually dead. Earth remained under quarantine, the automated systems still faithfully doing their job after 4 centuries. Marcus had the coordinates now, saved in 17 different backup locations, because he wasn't about to be another Dennis. Phylox approached him one afternoon while Marcus was updating the human cultural database with actually correct information. "Are you going to visit?" Phylox asked. "Earth, I mean, now that you know where it is." Marcus looked at the coordinates displayed on his screen, then out at the star field beyond the library's walls. "Yeah, someday. When things settle down. It's been 400 years. It's not going anywhere." "That is such a human answer," Phylox said. And he actually sounded fond. Vera implemented a new policy across the library. Check if species is actually extinct before filing. She also added a new greeting for every visitor, just to keep things interesting. "Welcome to the Library of Extinct Civilizations," Vera would say. "Before we begin your research, please confirm your species is actually extinct and not just poorly organized." Marcus settled into his new role, occasionally fielding questions from confused aliens about why humans had done basically anything in their entire history. His answer was usually some variation of "seemed like a good idea at the time," or "we were figuring it out as we went," or his personal favorite, "look, it worked out eventually, didn't it?" Late one night, when the library was quiet and most of the scholars had gone home, Marcus sat in the observation deck with a coffee and looked toward the sector where Earth waited, blue and green and patiently recovering. "Vera, you awake?" he asked. "I don't sleep, Marcus Webb. You ever think it's weird that humans lost their homeworld and just kind of kept going?" "I think it's the most perfectly human thing possible," Vera said. "Every other species treats their homeworld as sacred. You treated yours as a temporary setback." Marcus grinned. "We're really good at temporary setbacks." "Yes," Vera agreed. "You really are." Somewhere in the database, humanity's file updated itself one more time. Status: alive, well, and probably fine. Location: scattered across 40 systems. Homeworld: finally located after 400 years. Notable characteristics: survived 6 extinctions through sheer stubbornness and poor record-keeping. It was, Marcus thought, a pretty accurate summary. And somewhere in the vast dark between stars, Earth continued its patient recovery, waiting for the day when humans remembered to come home. They would eventually, Vera was certain. They'd probably show up unannounced, having forgotten to file the proper approach permits, wondering why all the lights were off. It would be very human. It would be perfect.